Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to From Lab to Launch podcast brought to you by Qualio. I'm Meg, your host, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. Before we dive into today's episode, we'd love it if you could take a moment to rate and share the podcast with your circle of science enthusiasts. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, please check out the application in the show notes. Today, we're excited to welcome Mark Roskey, Chief Scientific and Collaboration Officer at Massachusetts-based Quanterix. As more preventative approaches to health are set to take center stage, some diseases can't be prevented but can be managed more proactively. Blood-based biomarkers, such as p-tau217, hold great promise for earlier, more proactive detection and monitoring of diseases such as Alzheimer's. And it's here that Quanterix plays a critical role. Their Simoa digital health platform serves as the backbone for the majority of p-tau217 tests on the market today, reducing reliance on costly PET and CSF testing and streamlining the diagnostic journey for Alzheimer's disease. Mark has been a leader in the biotech space for over 2 decades, with a string of leadership roles before he joined Quanterix in 2014 and became their CSO in 2022. Mark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Meg, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mark, let's kick it off with telling me a little bit about this biomarker technology and what initially sparked your interest, and how did you get into your current role at Quanterix?
All right, yeah. I started off my career in the early days of molecular biology when DNA sequencing was the rage of genomics, and I worked on the development of a lot of genomic tools and automation. Through that early part of my career, I could see that sometimes where the rubber really met the road in terms of health had more to do with the phenotype or the protein, right? So I got interested in how proteins are specifically associated with disease. I focused my career a little bit more on the proteomics side. And when I learned in 2013, 14 about this new technology from Quanterix that could measure proteins in vanishingly small amounts, I got pretty excited about how that could potentially impact our ability to monitor health. So that's how I got involved. And when I got to Quanterix, the technology was just being commercialized, and I was excited about the applications that you could use it for that could impact human health.
How does Simoa work? How does this biomarker detection help patients, and especially if they have a disease that can't be cured currently?
Yeah. So this is the nice thing about, from a technology perspective, it works very simply. It's a standard immunoassay technology that's been around for many years. We just do an immunoassay on a bead like other platforms do, but then those beads are put into femtoliter wells, an array of femtoliter wells, and we can concentrate the signal from a sandwich immunoassay, and we can actually digitize that signal. What that brings is the ability to detect a protein at vanishingly small amounts, really almost at the single molecule level. So where a standard immunoassay can detect things in the femtomolar range, we can detect things in the attomolar range. What that means for health now is that small amounts of proteins that you would need, gallons and gallons of blood to be able to detect can be detected from a very small volume of blood. Many neurodegeneration biomarkers exist only in the brain and its associated cerebral spinal fluid, and they only leak out into the blood in vanishingly small amounts. So our technology is uniquely suited to be able to detect those neurodegeneration biomarkers.
Does that mean helping diagnose earlier for patients?
That's exactly it. And one of the ways we got started was, if you can see these biomarkers, these neurodegeneration biomarkers early, then it's the first stages of the disease. You mentioned the biomarker p-tau217. So that particular biomarker has been associated with the very early onset of beta amyloid plaques and tau tangles, which are the seeds of forming Alzheimer's disease. And of course, the therapeutics that are being developed work better for earlier patients. Once there's a whole bunch of neurodegeneration, it's hard to go back. So again, our technology is uniquely situated to pick it up early, and so you could impact it sooner and hopefully have a bigger impact with these new drugs that are being developed. So p-tau217 is one of a number of those biomarkers for the detection of early stage neurodegeneration.
Yeah, that early intervention is so important to get that early treatment and
Totally,
longevity and
totally.
quality of life.
Yeah.
So ensuring optimal product and process quality is crucial in our life sciences space. How does Quanterix maintain and monitor the quality of what you're doing to make sure you're delivering for these patients?
Yeah, this has been a really big feature and function of Quanterix as we've grown from a small company in 2014 when I joined, where we've just made these immunoassays, these digital immunoassays for research use, and it worked brilliantly for research use. But as you're indicating, as you move towards translational applications, clinical trials, and even further on to potential diagnostics, the quality of your product really has to go to another level. And we've been working very hard at that at Quanterix over the years. We actually slowed our business down in the early 2000s, in about 2022, to focus specifically on making higher quality assays because our customers were coming to us saying, hey, I have a clinical trial that's going to go over 5 years. I need the assay to work exactly the same in the 5th year as it did in the 1st year. And so we invested in making sure we built out our quality systems to another level. We specified our raw materials much more aggressively. We built our whole quality management system to 13485 regulatory compatibility and continue on that path today to bring products that are more amenable to long-term clinical trial studies and even take the next step are being developed as laboratory developed tests, which require increased regulation. We've developed a CLIA lab, and we've actually applied for breakthrough designation for several of these biomarkers, which is the first step as we go towards real FDA regulated products.
That leads me right into my next question is what regulatory hurdles have you had to face as a company? You mentioned some of those, but how have you overcome them and what kind of lies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been an unexpected thing as we got going, but we have overcome them by further building out that whole quality systems. Within that, we have a pharmaceutical partner for the development of a version of p-tau217, which is the company Eli Lilly. And they helped us realize what quality we needed to get to make a product that was acceptable to them. Much more documentation, the quality systems I mentioned, driving towards the laboratory developed tests in our CLIA lab, and now submitting these breakthrough designations. And now we are actually filing for FDA approval for a few of these biomarkers as we bring them to market.
Great.
We're pretty excited about one in particular. p-tau217 was one of the first biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease, but we found that adding some additional biomarkers makes the test even better. So we have a diagnostic brand that we call Lucent, and we just launched this Lucent AD Complete, which is a p-tau217 test, plus several other biomarkers, plus an algorithm that's used to tell you to really be diagnostically sensitive, specific, and have good clinical cutoffs. So we're pretty excited about that. And that has, back to your quality question, that has required us to really move up the quality ladder to produce that product.
Yeah. Great to have a partner like Eli Lilly who knows and understands quality at scale too, as you were trying to scale up your operations.
Absolutely. They taught us so much, and they pride themselves on quality. So it's been a great relationship.
Great. Other than regulatory hurdles, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced in your role, Mark?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that we face is the rapidly evolving field of biomarker analysis. It seems every few weeks somebody has some new exciting biomarker for Alzheimer's or for a number of other things like ALS, Parkinson's, etc. And that's just neurodegeneration. There's also the fields of immunology, oncology, where there are a plethora of biomarkers. So it becomes challenging to decide which biomarkers you should focus on bringing forward as a product because it takes time and money, particularly as you mentioned, to get a high quality product out to market. So trying to prioritize the list of next generation biomarkers, which will be most impactful to health and keep the company growing in the right way, has been a significant challenge. But it's also one of the more exciting parts about my role because I work with thought leaders around the world to help us do that.
Yeah. If only money and time were not constraints, we could tackle all of those biomarkers and accomplish so many
Exactly.
things, Mark.
Yep. Yep.
What emerging trends or technologies in the biomarker detection excite you the most with all this rapid change? And how are you and Quanterix positioning yourself to take the lead in these areas?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that is directly related to the challenge is that as you get more of these biomarkers, people are finding that if they combine the biomarkers, as I mentioned for that Lucent AD complete assay, you combine one or more and make multiplex assays, you can get more clinically relevant information. So one of the trends is higher multiplexing, and we can typically multiplex successfully and with high sensitivity and high quality around 4-plex with our current technology. But I think there's an opportunity and need to multiplex 8-plex, 10-plex, maybe 15-plex, and still be clinically relevant. So that's one of the most exciting new technological advances that we're doing in the company. We have a next generation version of Simoa that we're going to call Simoa 1 that will enable this higher plex, but keep that same level of sensitivity that our current products offer, and even drive that a little more sensitive. So we're pretty excited about how that product will impact the field in the future. So that's an exciting advance. And if I could just touch on one other one, because our customers taught us this one, is that people are not only looking at protein biomarkers directly in the blood, but they're also very interested in these exosomes or extracellular vesicles, EVs. So these pinch off of cells, and they often carry specific protein biomarkers from different organs, from the brain, or from, so they're becoming increasingly valuable. And people want to isolate these exosomes or these EVs, and they're in vanishingly small amounts, so you need sensitive technology to do that. And then they want to analyze the protein cargo in those EVs. So this whole field of exosomes, EVs, is burgeoning. It's exciting. It's early days in that field, but we're developing some Simoa products that will help researchers analyze protein biomarkers in EVs as well.
I can't wait to see what comes from Quanterix. Lots of exciting things on the biomarker front. So, Mark, what advice would you offer to other life science business leaders to help them navigate their careers and make meaningful contributions in science and healthcare?
Yeah, I think that one of the most meaningful thing you can do to really impact the field is to stay abreast of the science, of the biology. The biology is advancing with not just biomarker technology, but stem cell technology, CAR T, all kinds of technologies, CRISPR technology. And you stay involved and understand how those technologies are evolving and what tools could be useful to help keep that acceleration going. So staying abreast of the field is number one, and understanding the underlying biology. And then additionally, I find building strong partnerships and relationships with key scientists, researchers, customers, pharmaceutical clients that are really working on these biology problems, and understanding what their problems are at a technical level, I think is most important. That's often where the greatest ideas come from. In the early days of Quanterix, we weren't really sure about one particular biomarker. It's called neurofilament light, and we weren't sure about the relevance. And we had a dinner with with 6 or 7 different pharmaceutical drug developers. And I said, is anybody interested in this neurofilament light? And they taught us what the relevance was for their specific use cases and their biology. And that caused us to make it a #1 biomarker, and really drove the company's early growth, again, by listening to these thought leaders.
Yeah. And your collaboration with Eli Lilly and helping you learn quality, I think there's lots to be said for having collaboration, even in your title. So I think that's a great advice of being collaborative. And that's how we can tackle all these big issues, right? Is not just singularly, but as a collaborative effort. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our last question is more of a fun one we like to ask each of our guests. If we ran into at your local bookstore, your local library, in what section would we find you, Mark?
I think I'm a bit of a biology science geek, so I'd be in the biology science section with a focus on kind of health. I've been very interested in the last several years in all the longevity work coming out. And particularly as you relate that down to some of the biomarkers. And so That's really, I think, where you'd find me. I might sneak over to the endurance athletics section every once in a while. I like to do some hardcore cycling, but those
Okay.
were the two areas you would find me.
I have a follow-up question to that. Before we got on, you mentioned you had kids who went to school out here in Colorado. Do you have a
Right.
favorite place to cycle out here in Colorado?
Oh, I've done a lot of cycling in Colorado. I love it. There's a race called the Leadville 100 in Leadville, Colorado, and I've done it 5 times. So it's a 100-mile mountain bike race that I like to participate in.
And at the altitude here, that's no joke.
Yes, no kidding, 10,000 feet. So that's
You're
a tough one.
serious about endurance and longevity and biomarkers. Love it, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can our listeners go who want to follow along more about your journey and Quanterix journey and connect?
Yeah, you can definitely go to the Quanterix website and follow along with Quanterix, and you can look at me, find me directly at LinkedIn. Just say Mark Roskey, Quanterix, LinkedIn, and you should be able to follow me.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining. It was great meeting you, Mark, and it was great learning all about your journey.
You too, Meg. Thanks so much for having us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.